This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Manhunt in Utah. Good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast. The search goes on today for the gunman who killed conservative influencer Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old husband, father, and co-founder of Turning Point USA, shot dead yesterday by a single bullet while speaking to college kids in Utah. Utah's governor is Spencer Cox.
Our nation is broken. Nothing I say can unite us as a country. Nothing I can say can bring back Charlie Kirk. Our hearts are broken. We mourn with his wife, his children, his family, his friends. We mourn as a nation. If anyone in the sound of my voice celebrated even a little bit at the news of this shooting, I would beg you to look in the mirror and to see if you can find a better angel in there somewhere.
Two people who were detained moments after the shooting have since been released. Officials say they had no ties to this assassination. Governor Cox promising to move heaven and earth in their hunt for the killer.
I want to make it crystal clear right now to whoever did this, we will find you, we will try you, and we will hold you accountable to the furthest extent of the law. And I just want to remind people that we still have the death penalty here in the state of Utah.
Police said this morning they now have images of the suspect, but are not releasing them to the public. The FBI special agent in charge, Robert Bowles, announcing another breakthrough in this case.
We have recovered what we believe is the weapon that was used in yesterday's shooting. It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled.
Utah Public Safety Commissioner Bo Mason believes the shooter jumped from the roof where he fired that fatal shot and is somewhere in the nearby neighborhood.
The suspect blended in well with a college institution. That individual appears to be of college age.
Homicide detective Brian Foley says the gunman killed Charlie Kirk from an elevated position, hundreds of feet from where the conservative activist was sitting, underneath a tent in an outdoor amphitheater.
I don't like it. You look at that description, black mask, black helmet, all blacked out, possibly a tack vest. You have a long gun getting into campus, a long gun getting out of campus. What that tells me is this was well planned, well executed, and what they're dealing with right now is a whodunit. That single shot, one gunshot, is alarming. At range, 200 yards with a high-powered rifle. For someone to get something like that in and out of a university campus where guns are forbidden. So this is a real whodunit for this detective.
Kirk was struck in the neck 20 minutes into that event yesterday at Utah Valley University. President Trump calls him a martyr for truth and freedom.
Charlie was also a man of deep, deep faith. And we take comfort in the knowledge that he is now at peace with God in heaven.
He adds, this shocking assassination is a dark moment for America.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, but he failed, because together we will ensure that his voice, his message, and his legacy will live on for countless generations to come.
The president announced this morning he will be awarding the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously to Charlie Kirk. Political analyst Mark Halperin.
He was a singular person. There was no one like him in America. There was no one like him in the Republican Party, in the MAGA movement, no one like him in the Democratic Party. Really, because of his use of technology, I'd argue there's been no one like him in American history. He was an activist, an organizer. I don't think Donald Trump would have won the last election without the organizing done by Charlie Kirk. And I grieve for his family, and I grieve for his friends like the president and the vice president and so many other senior people in this government and in this movement. And I grieve for this country to lose someone so young, so talented, already an historical figure with so much promise to change things. And the left hates him because he was a warrior, and the left hates him because he was effective. But I was fascinated by him and so impressed with his heart. And we all know there are people who are jerks who rise in power or become jerks because they do. This was the most modest, thoughtful, caring father, husband, friend, any of us have ever known.
That's political analyst Mark Halperin. College kids all over the world are mourning the loss of Charlie Kirk today, whom they refer to as a cultural icon. Many call him the driving force behind the modern-day conservative movement.
He was a friend. He helped people. He didn't ask for anything in return. He was larger than life. He was a good man. He didn't ask for anything. He just wanted to save our country.
He's the only one who truly cared about students my age and really valued us whether we can vote or not. He went to those college campuses, he went to those high schools, established Turning Point USA clubs, and he actually got students to finally become engaged.
Vice President J.D. Vance calls Kirk a man of courage, faith, and profound loyalty. He was the kind of guy, says Vance, you could say something to and know it would always stay with him. Vance concluded a heartfelt post on social media last night by writing, and we're quoting here, "You ran a good race, my friend. We've got it from here." We'll have more on the death of Charlie Kirk later in the broadcast, but coming up next on the Noon Report, we're marking time, 24 years since 9/11.
Good afternoon, I'm Kevin Williams. The serene weather scene continues for a couple more days at least. Forecast hotels are up in 10.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much. Today marks 24 years since 19 Islamic jihadists hijacked 4 commercial jetliners and turned them into missiles in the worst act of terrorism ever committed on U.S. soil. Nearly 3,000 people died that day, September 11th, 2001, in Lower Manhattan, at the Pentagon, and in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
At 8:46 a.m., the North Tower of the World Trade Center was hit by American Airlines Flight 11. 9:03 a.m., United Flight 175 struck its twin, the South Tower. The Pentagon in Washington was hit by American Air Flight 77 at 9:37 a.m. Back in New York City, the South World Trade Tower collapsed at 9:59. 10:03, another hijacked plane, United Flight 93, crashed in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. At 10:28 a.m., World Trade's North Tower was last to fall. Nearly 3,000 dead on one day America will long remember.
Gernal Scott at Fox News. There are 100 million Americans alive today who were not on 9/11. They don't know a world before 9/11.
You're not a direct part of it or didn't actually see it. I think it has less effect on you. Whereas people like me who witnessed it, I think it still has this effect.
Retired New York City police officer Rich Anderson says his most vivid memory of 9/11 is how the country came together afterwards.
There was this patriotism, flying that American flag was you were proud to do it because we all came together. And it was just it was amazing to see, there wasn't a mean person in the world, it seemed like that day.
Family Life Sarah Harnish speaks next with retired Salvation Army Major Thomas Applin, who was the incident commander at Ground Zero in the weeks following the terrorist attack. Here's some of their conversation.
Walking through that area that was completely devastated, rocks and rubble, soot and grime and ash everywhere, was probably the most incredible experience of my life. I say that both negatively and positively because while it was just an awful, awful thing to happen, there was incredible ministry that took place, and it was an honor to be able to serve families and service personnel, firefighters and EMTs.
What were you doing for the first responders?
One of the stories I remember so clearly was Salvation Army personnel literally washing the feet of firefighters after they came off the pile. They would come to a station that we had established, and we would remove their boots and their socks and wash their feet, many whom boots had melted because of the heat of the pile. I don't think there's anything more humbling than having the opportunity to do what Jesus did.
What's your favorite story from Ground Zero?
It was common practice as they were searching the pile, hoping for survivors, but generally there were no survivors. When a body was found, the Salvation Army was asked to lead a procession of individuals as they carried the body out of the pile. I have to tell you, that would literally bring us to our knees as we thought about the lives that were lost, the families who had lost those loved ones, and there were many, many, many families right in the area who were waiting just waiting to know that their loved one had been found. That was just a holy moment to be there and to bring comfort.
Where did you see Jesus?
I saw Jesus everywhere. It's quite amazing, honestly. People were more open to the gospel, more open to spiritual things. And of course, that happens in time of disaster. But it's just wonderful to be able to provide hope to people who see everything as hopeless and to help them begin the journey towards wholeness of life again after losing someone that they loved.
Out of the entire experience and physically being there in Lower Manhattan, is there a story that comes to mind that you're never going to forget?
There were only certain people were allowed access into much of the area in Lower Manhattan. But because of my responsibility, I was allowed access to walk through. And it was after dark, late in the evening, I was walking from one of our service sites to another, and I came upon a gentleman very well dressed. He had government insignia on his uniform, suit and tie, and he stopped me and he said, "Sir, aren't we all victims of this horrible tragedy?" And that gave me the opportunity for the next 10 or 15 minutes to counsel with him, to pray with him, provide comfort, because indeed he was correct. We were all victims of that horrible tragedy. But to be able to be there, it was a God moment. God provided the opportunity, and as I prayed with him, it was my hope that he would walk away feeling as though God cared, God understood, and God would provide him what he needed.
There's an entire generation that was not alive when this happened, and now they're adults. What do you want them to know about 9/11?
We can't forget. We must always remember the price that was paid. The price of freedom is that there's always the chance that something will happen to take that freedom away. And we need to be vigilant. We need to be watching and be cautious and live our lives in such a way that we don't allow it to happen again. And at the same time, we need as a nation to continue to trust in God because he's the only answer.
How do you approach somebody who is starting literally from ground zero with their faith?
Probably as I have done throughout all of my ministry, I wait for God to provide the opportunity. There's never a time when there's not an opportunity, when God doesn't open a door for us to minister to people. I don't know that I've ever had all the right words, but somehow, some way, in providing the opportunity, God also provides the words.
Learn more at SalvationArmyUSA.org.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And you can hear more of her interview with Thomas Aplin in our latest Faith Under Fire podcast. It's available at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or our website, familylife.org. Let's switch gears, talk sports. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, once again, the Detroit Tigers manhandled the New York Yankees. This time, Detroit only scored 11 times in their 11-1 rout. Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, and Colt Heath all hit home runs, and Jack Flaherty spun 5 scoreless innings, striking out 7. Yanks now 3 games back of Toronto, tied with the Red Sox. Boston lost a 5-4 decision to the Athletics, so both the Yankees and the Bo Sox are tied for the top wild card spot. Again, the other New York team got crushed as well, 11-3. The Phillies dominated the Mets behind Christopher Sanchez and Max Kepler. Sanchez went 6 innings, only gave up 1 run. Kepler hit a home run and drove in 5. Bryce Harper also went deep in the rout. Mets have now lost 5 in a row. The Reds and Giants are now just 2 back of the Amazons for that final wild card spot. Around the league, Paul Skeens struck out 8 in 5 2/3 innings to surpass 200 strikeouts for the season. The Buccos lost the game 2-1 to Baltimore. Skeens threw a season-low 64 pitches as Pittsburgh is managing his workload. He leads the majors with a 1.92 ERA over 178 innings. Jake Berger went deep twice in Texas' 6-3 win over Milwaukee, completing a sweep of the team with the best record in the Bigs. Arizona down the Giants 5-3. The Angels edged the Twins 4-3. Likewise, KC a 4-3 winner over the Guardians. Miami 8, Washington 3. Houston squeaked past Toronto 3-2. 3-2 was the score in the Cubs win over Atlanta. The White Sox edged the Rays 6-5. Cincy a 2-1 winner over the Padres. Seattle doubled up the Cards 4-2. And the Dodgers shut down Colorado 9-zip. That is a look at sports.
Thank you, Randy. And still to come on the Noon Report for Thursday, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. 24 years since 9/11, and the fall foliage is almost here.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. In a recent article in National Review, Wesley J. Smith described a new study of over 1 million women in Quebec from 2006 to 2022. The study found, and I quote here, compared with live births and stillbirths, patients with induced abortions had a greater risk of admission for psychiatric disorders, substance use disorders, and suicide attempts over time. Also, and I quote again, abortion was associated with a long-term risk of hospitalization for psychiatric disorders, substance use disorders, and suicide attempts in models adjusted for age, comorbidity, pre-existing mental illness, material deprivation, rural residence, and time period. And abortion was more strongly associated with eating disorders, hallucinogen use disorders, and cocaine use disorders. End quote. Now, this isn't the first study to find that abortion, in addition to killing an innocent preborn child, is harmful to women. Back in April, the pro-life group Live Action reported on another study that indicated that 11% of women who undergo chemical abortion suffer a serious adverse event. That's a number that's far higher than anything has been reported by the FDA. Quote, this means 1 in 10 women experience at least one serious complication from taking mifepristone within 45 days. That's 22 times higher than the quote-unquote less than 0.5% serious adverse events rate that's reported by the FDA on the mifepristone label, according to the study. The study authors state that serious adverse events in multiple categories were accounted for in the reported rate, end quote. Now, if abortion is truly about women's health, as advocates claim, then they should immediately demand more regulation, investigation, and limits on this practice. But they do not. And that they do not, but rather double down on demanding abortion as a so-called right, demonstrates how abortion sits at the center of their worldview. According to the General Social Survey, agreement with this statement, women should be able to get an abortion for any reason if she wants one, increased from 42% in 2012 to 57% in 2022. This tells us a lot about how deeply held beliefs work, especially those that are held at a foundational worldview level. When absolute autonomy, especially sexual autonomy, is the fundamental source of human value, abortion has to then become an absolute. Christians who want to move the needle on abortion have to understand how worldview works. It's the only way that we can make sense of those who refuse the facts about abortion and those who say they don't like abortion but then refuse to do anything, not even vote, to restrict it. The most dominant idea that holds sway over American culture right now is that nothing should prevent people from living as they please, not even the consequences of reality. Unless we engage and counter and unseat this first principle of this culture's dominant worldview, it's not going to matter how many studies we present or how clever our rhetoric is. Yes, we should continue to pass as many laws as possible restricting this horror. But we have to pray for God to intervene in hearts and minds. We have to love and serve those who are the most vulnerable and seek to persuade as many as we can. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Thank you, John. Let's head outside. Mr. Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast for this afternoon. Sunshine, some fair weather, mixed clouds, and high temperatures in the 70s. A few spots nudge 80. Then for tonight, mainly clear, low temps, upper 40s to mid 50s. Tomorrow and Saturday, Good deal of sunshine and pleasant with high temperatures ranging in the 70s to near 80 degrees. And again, maybe a couple of showers around on Sunday.
All right, Kevin, thank you. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price. Great to have you with us today. Lots going on Thursday, the 11th of September. 24 years since 9/11, the day, of course, which forever changed this country and the world. We remember the nearly 3,000 lives lost in the worst terror attack ever committed on U.S. soil. It was on this day, 24 years ago, that 19 Islamic jihadists hijacked 4 commercial jetliners and turned them into missiles. NBC's Stephanie Gosk has more from the place they call Ground Zero.
In the early years following the attack, this anniversary felt like a kind of catharsis for the country, but it has evolved. There is now an entire generation of adults who did not live through that day, and this has become a way to help them understand what the country went through.
As has been the case on every 9/11 for the past quarter century, somber observance ceremonies were held today in Lower Manhattan, at the Pentagon, and that former field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, which is now the Flight 93 Memorial. President Trump will be at a New York Yankees baseball game tonight with 9/11 survivors. New York City ferryboat captain and Navy reservist Rick Thornton.
In the days and months after 9/11, there was this outpouring of unity, selflessness, compassion, patriotism. And slowly but surely, that just kind of disappeared. And now they're trying to figure out how to teach 9/11 to school children, people who weren't born, even the people who were there. Even New Yorkers, they were a little bit jaded, and in a good way. They're resilient and they bounce back. But we can't lose sight of what happened that day and the courage of a lot of regular people doing extraordinary things.
100 million Americans have been born in the days, weeks, months, and years since 9/11. That's about a quarter of the overall population. 100 million people who do not know a world before 9/11. The manhunt continues for Charlie Kirk's killer, the conservative influencer shot to death by a single bullet yesterday at a college campus in Utah. The 31-year-old co-founder of Turning Point USA was struck in the neck as thousands looked on. Utah's Governor Spencer Cox.
It's a tragic day for our nation. And I want to be very clear that this is a political assassination.
House Speaker Mike Johnson fears cancel culture has devolved into kill culture. And it's got to stop.
We've got to turn the volume down. There's a lot of the people, I think, that find pleasure in stoking that fire, and it's dangerous.
Police have released images of the suspect and have recovered the weapon used in the crime, a bolt-action rifle. They believe the killer jumped from the roof after the shooting and fled into a nearby neighborhood. The shot that took the life of Charlie Kirk was fired from a distance of about 200 yards from where he was sitting underneath a tent in an outdoor amphitheater. Former FBI Special Agent Jonathan Gillum.
If that is in fact a roof that they were on, how was that allowed to occur? Was that individual an employee at the school? Did they have some kind of special access? Or was a threat assessment just not done and a door, for instance, was left wide open? I think that's something that needs to be asked, because that narrows the scope of who could have been up there and who could have taken that shot.
Charlie Kirk was famous for crisscrossing the country and speaking to college kids about controversial issues. President Trump called him a martyr for truth and freedom.
This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever.
In a gruesome irony, Kirk was shot while fielding a question about mass shootings. This assassination has sent shockwaves across the country. Reporter Robert Costa.
So many Republicans are stunned to see a rising star gunned down. On paper, an activist, someone who was influential with many young Americans, especially those who were more on the right.
Conservative commentator Greg Gutfeld at Fox News.
Charlie was such a force of nature. He was brilliant and he was funny, but what scared people was his persuasiveness. The only way to take him down, because he could persuade you so strongly, was to kill him. And the shock and despair that we are feeling, and I mean we as in shared by everyone, it's a testament to the impact of Charlie's character. And it's so deep a wound that we all feel.
Gutfeld's colleague, Sean Hannity, says Charlie Kirk was the eternal optimist who offered young people validation for their beliefs.
We try to make sense of what is a senseless act of violence. We are filled with sadness, outrage, anger, rightly so, righteous indignation. At what point do we finally say in this country, enough is enough?
Dr. Steve Coleman is a political analyst from New York Southern Tier. I talked to him earlier today about the impact that Charlie Kirk had on the culture. Here's some of that conversation.
He was instrumental in the election of Donald Trump. He drew a lot of young people into the political process, and he was still doing that. He was still doing that yesterday at Utah Valley University when he was shot. He was open-minded. At all of his rallies, he had a prove me wrong table, and he challenged people to come up and talk to him and debate and prove him wrong. And oftentimes, he persuaded people that were on the fence, or even people that had opposite views to his view, which is what America is all about, the free marketplace of ideas. He was a shining light in an age of political violence, mayhem, and insanity. We've lost a very important person.
Yeah. When we talk about a guy like Charlie Kirk and what happened to him, how did we get to this point, Steve, when cancel culture, for lack of a better term, became kill culture? It used to be if I didn't agree with you, I try to silence you. Now it's if I don't agree with you, I kill you. I take you out. How did we get to this point?
We got to this point, Bob, step by step. Political violence is a contagion in this country. It's a cancer. But let me say this. Most people in America, they're good people. They're people of faith. They're people that raise families. They're people that try to make a difference in their daily lives. And that's the America I'm thinking of right now. And when these things happen, time after time after time, you start to think that America is going down the drain when it really isn't. And I think people listening on Family Life should remember that.
And the final question I have for you, Steve, is will we learn the lesson of the Charlie Kirk tragedy? Apparently we didn't with the attempted assassinations on President Trump, with the firebombing of Governor Shapiro's mansion, with the killing of the Minnesota state lawmaker. I could go on. And the shooting of Steve Scalise on a softball field. Will we learn the lesson of the Charlie Kirk tragedy? Or do you think that the likelihood of political violence will increase and not decrease as a result of this?
In the short run, political violence may very well increase because the crazies out there, the real political radicals who have an agenda, they're going to continue to do what they do. But that's not America. That's not most people. I just want to mention finally that Charlie Kirk was instrumental in getting presidents into the White House for a second term. Yeah. He was continuing to draw people in, young people into the political process.
Yeah.
And he made a real difference for the good, for the better. He improved this country so much.
And he was motivated by two things more than anything else: faith and family. Some shoes never get filled. His are definitely among those. I want to end with a post that Vice President Vance made last night, and if you care to comment, I'd love to get your thoughts. He simply wrote on social media of his dear friend, "You ran a good race, my friend. We've got it from here." And I just want you to share, Steve, how we can become better citizens of this country because of the work of people like Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, well, Charlie Kirk was a gift from God. And one lesson from Charlie Kirk is public speaking and discourse is great, but also public listening as well as public speaking That's the genius of America. And as long as we can continue to have political debate and people are open to listening to the other side, we'll be all set. I think there's great hope in America.
Amen.
On this tragic day.
Political analyst Dr. Steve Coleman in Elmira, New York. This is the Noon Report on Family Life.
A very good afternoon to all. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Well, the stage is set for more of the same, frankly, more pleasant weather ahead. High pressure dominates the weather scene, and the result, fair skies, cool nights, mild days carrying us into the start of the weekend. A weak front will bring the chance of a couple of showers on Sunday, but not a lot of rain is anticipated. For this afternoon, sunshine, some fair weather, mixed clouds, and high temperatures in the 70s. A few spots nudge 80. Then for tonight, mainly clear, low temps, upper 40s to mid 50s. Tomorrow and Saturday, good deal of sunshine and pleasant with high temperatures ranging in the 70s to near 80 degrees. And again, maybe a couple of showers around on Sunday.
All right, Kevin, could use a little rain in these here parts. Starting to get a little dry out there. Finally at noon, leaf peepers. It's almost here. Fall foliage is big business in New York and Pennsylvania. Ross Levi is with the I Love New York campaign.
In New York, we're so lucky. We have the longest foliage season of any state in the nation, and the season is just underway. We released our first weekly report. It's our 40th year of doing a weekly foliage report. And as is usual in New York State, the season begins in the higher elevations. So right now it's mainly about the Adirondacks and the Catskills. But that will spread throughout the state. And between now and basically mid-November, there's going to be somewhere in New York State every weekend that's in peak. And the grand finale ends down in New York City and Long Island.
And not to be outdone, Pennsylvania offers some spectacular fall foliage as well from about mid-September to late October. The vibrant colors will burst forth first in places like the Pocono Mountains and the Allegheny National Forest. A real popular spot to view the foliage is the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. Doesn't get much better than that. You can check the weekly fall foliage reports on the Pennsylvania DEC website. And that's our world, the world we live in. Thursday, September 11th. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.